Welcome to the Riverbend Awareness Project.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast episode are solely those of the individuals participating and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Riverbend Media Group or the Riverbend Awareness Project, its affiliates, or its employees. It is important to note that the discussion presented is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified healthcare professionals for any medical concerns or decisions. The Riverbend Awareness Project is a product of Riverbend Media Group.
Welcome back to the Riverbend Awareness Project. Today we are talking about energy awareness, and we have Sarah Wheeler and Christopher Jensen from Idaho Falls Power with us today. We're so grateful for you guys coming in. Thank you so much. Also, we have Jeff. It's his first time on the screen. He's been in the editing stages of last month's episode, so we're excited. But let me let you guys introduce yourselves and what you do at Idaho Falls Power, and share a little more about that. So
great, thanks so much, Melissa and Jeff. Thanks for having us. So as you said, my name's Sarah Wheeler. I am the External Affairs Manager for Idaho Falls Power. And so what that title entails is everything externally affairs related. It's kind of in my portfolio. So I do website, social media, public information, public outreach, and kind of oversee the energy service sector of our group. So if you guys ever have any questions regarding that, just give me a call and be able to answer that. And then the real brains of the operation is Christopher over here to my left. And so I'll let Christopher introduce himself.
Yes. So I'm Christopher. I'm Community Relations Coordinator for Idaho Falls Power. I've been there just over 3 years. My job entails really working with the public and community outreach, career fairs. We do tours of our power plant in town. So if that's something that'd be of interest to you, you're more than welcome to reach out to us, and I can take you through the plant and see all the workings of that. Social media. We have built a fiber optic network out all over town. And so that's a big part of my job, is kind of putting the word out there about that, and sales, scheduling, installations, things like that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys sound like you're busy.
Yeah.
There is never a dull day at Idaho Falls Power, that's for sure. And maybe just a little bit more about the municipality itself and our electric utility company, because it is really unique and it's really, really interesting as we kind of dive into the topic today to understand maybe the background of our organization. But we are going to be celebrating our 125th anniversary in October.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So Idaho Falls, before it was even named Idaho Falls, has had power since 1900 through hydroelectricity, where we lit the very first street light. And so Christopher can probably tell us a little bit more about, kind of some of that history and culture. Yeah.
So, 2025, we are at 125 years that we have been bringing clean, affordable electricity to Idaho Falls. And it started in the year 1900. It was actually October 22nd. So that's going to be our birthday. And the people living here at the time, they put a small generator on an irrigation canal in town in order to power streetlights. And that canal, I wondered about it, where that was located, and it was on the corner of South Boulevard and Elm Street. So there's a park there called Liberty Park. That is where the first canal and the first generator was located. And so October 22nd, they turned that on, lit the street lights. People living here thought that was really cool. They wanted to have electricity in their homes. And so they built our first, the city plant in the year 1912. And so they followed shortly by the meter system after that. And that's when electricity kind of first came to town. And then they built our lower plant and our upper plant. And so, like I said, 125 years, we've been cranking out electricity for Idaho Falls.
Yeah.
That's really cool. We are excited to go tour the plant too. I'm like super excited. And then Jeff has connections, so he was like even more excited. So
I've been in all of the city plants before.
Okay.
Really?
My dad
That's
worked
awesome.
for Idaho Falls Power.
Oh, really? That's
So anytime
great.
they were tearing one of the plants down and doing something in them, he would take us out and show us what he was doing at work.
That's cool. Yeah, it's one of those things like you don't realize how cool or complex it is till
Mhm.
you start diving down and you're like, "Oh, wow,
Hmm.
it's a lot here."
Mind-boggling. So, diving into our topic of energy awareness, what does energy awareness mean to you guys? And what kind of message do you think, what key messages would you share with the public about energy awareness?
So energy is really important. I mean, sometimes I don't think we think it's the sexiest topic, right?
Yeah.
But when you go to flip your light switch on and the lights don't come on, all of a sudden you're wondering, where's the power? Where's the energy? And I think that National Energy Awareness Month in October really provides us a platform and a catalyst to talk about energy because the more we know about something, the better we can use that resource. And energy is a critical issue nowadays, even more so, right? We have generation, but it's not a finite um option right now. Like currently, there's just only so much coal, only so much natural gas. Hydropower is amazing, and we're really excited to talk about geek out over hydropower
Mhm.
with you guys today. But still, it is relying upon water. And so knowing what we can do personally and nationally to maybe conserve energy so we're not tapping out the loads constantly is really important. And I think talking about that is one of the first steps. So that's why, I mean, I think energy is important. It's a global issue. I think we're going to face some challenges as we move forward with um, data centers take up a lot of energy. AI uses a lot of energy. And so, how are we going to meet that growing demand um, from the public and from these businesses that are going forward? It's something we're going to have to look at and figure out as we move forward. But I think Idaho Falls is positioned really well to meet those. So, I mean, anything else to add, Christopher, on
No, I
energy?
think
Energy's great.
yep, and I think just being aware of with the generation, um, it's important to have a big portfolio. There's no one perfect way to generate electricity, and they're all important. But they all have their issues. I mean, here in Idaho. We have a lot of solar sales people that like to come in the summertime, but I mean, solar's not really the best, most efficient way to generate electricity here in
Mhm.
Idaho. But Pacific Northwest, we're huge with hydro. It's great, but a lot of environmental factors, concern with dams and fish, migrating up and down the streams and whatnot. So that is something to keep in mind. But wind, it's great when it's blowing. When it's not blowing, not the most efficient way to generate electricity. So there's a lot of research and development going on right now, which is exciting with nuclear. So that's
Mhm.
going to be exciting to see where that goes. And fossil fuels, natural gas, our peaking plant
Yeah.
that's going to be, we're doing a ribbon cutting on that here in December. So anyway, just there's no one perfect way, and it's just important to have kind of all of those in your portfolio.
Yep. Diversification of resources, right? Best way to run anything.
Mhm.
So in Idaho Falls, like I said, is really going back to what Christopher said. We do have a broad portfolio, which is awesome. So maybe I'll touch on
Mhm.
that kind of a little bit before we dive into the nitty gritty. But as he said, we are able to generate about 33% of our electricity through the hydro plants on the Snake River, which is cool. Like, so we generate a third of what Idaho Falls
Mhm.
needs to
It's
function.
about 42 megawatt.
Yep.
Yep.
42 megawatts. And that's quite a bit, which is impressive. So not only are we doing the generation, but then we do the distribution as well to homes, as well as the transmission of that kind of higher um, level energy. But that means we need to find 70% elsewhere. And as Christopher mentioned, we have some long-term agreements with the Bonneville Power Administration for hydropower throughout the Pacific Northwest. So really, when you look at it, we're purchasing a lot of hydro, we're developing hydro, but what is about 70%,
Mhm.
do you
Yeah.
think, of our entire portfolio that people consume locally
Specifically, yeah.
is
Hydro.
specifically hydroelectricity, which is impressive. And then, so how do we make up that difference right there? And as Christopher mentioned, like we do have some nuclear in our portfolio. Really exciting to see where nuclear might be headed. Like that's outside my knowledge gap. So I wish I could talk to
Yeah,
it,
you're good.
but thankfully like Idaho National Laboratory is just right next door and they could probably like discuss everything in great length. But I think there's some really cool arenas that can be tapped into. We have our Horse Butte wind farms, just kind of out by Bone that we're able to capitalize on some wind power as well. And then we do have to go out to the energy market. So just like the stock market, there's an energy market that people are buying and selling, and it's really instantaneous because you can't really store electricity. So we are looking at weather forecasts and saying, what do we think? Are people going to turn on their heaters today? And if they are, how much energy do you think we're going to consume? We need to go buy that on the open market to supply it to our constituents here. And so there's a lot of moving parts as we look at our energy portfolio and what we need to secure so people can have that energy as soon as they turn the lights on.
That's cool. I had no idea there was an energy market.
I know.
That's so
like that's how I
cool.
picture it. Like just
Well,
a
and
stock exchange for energy. But yeah.
it's funny when we first started, when we decided on this topic, then we were kind of researching like, oh, who could we invite for guests and stuff. I realized like it was there in the back of my mind, but I realized how much diverse energy sources we really do have in this area because you can see the windmills. Everyone knows about INL, and then I was like, oh, and hydro, and I was like, this is so cool that we have this, that and more that I didn't know about, obviously, but like the diverse sources of energy in Southeast Idaho. So just interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about how hydropower works.
Sure.
You want to take that? Or do you want me to
Sure,
take it?
absolutely.
Okay.
So I remember as I remember as a little boy going to Lake Powell, and my dad took us to the Glen Canyon Dam for a tour, and I couldn't have given a hoot about any of that stuff. I see the Palisades Dam, Hoover Dam, kind of what they are. I've just never really understood that there's actually these are power plants, and that there's giant turbines inside these dams that are being used to generate electricity. So just as I'm kind of a guy, I like everything layman's terms and really dumb it down. Don't use big words and all these. I'm just going to kind of for hydropower, how it works. Okay, so basically in the river, they put these machines, turbines, are usually the things that are spinning. There can be different types. Here in Idaho Falls, all of our types are Kaplan models, and so they look like a giant propeller, like on the back of a cruise ship. Okay, so those are sitting in the river, and as the river is flowing past them, it's making them turn. They're on a shaft connected to a generator. A generator it looks like a giant UFO, and it's just a series of magnets wound with copper wires. And just as that is spinning, it's causing an electrical excitement, goes up and through the wires and out onto the grid, and that's how we get electricity. So all of our plants here in Idaho Falls that are on the river are known as run of the river. So every bit of water that's coming down the Snake River from upstream, it's the same amount that's going down. We're not holding any back. We're not damming any. It might look like down to our Gem State plant, there's kind of a big, not really a reservoir, but it looks like we're holding water back. We're not. So every bit of water going down, it's the same amount going downstream. But whereas like Island Park or Palisades or, Lake Mead, those would be an example of a dam and a reservoir for water storage and different things like that. But so
we run our run of river, and it's great, and we just really take advantage of that natural drop of river flow, which is great. But obviously, it's dependent on that water system, and so if there's not a huge runoff, like we might not be producing as much hydropower during some times of the year. Likewise, if we're producing a lot because we have a really strong water year, we're able to sell that power out into the open market and help reduce the cost of electrical rates for everyone in Idaho Falls.
And Idaho Falls Power, we actually not only have one of the cheapest rates in the state of Idaho, but in the nation.
Yeah. We'll harp on that a little bit because that's pretty, that really is quite cool, right? It really is impressive. And I do think that a lot of kudos needs to be sent out to the people that were in Idaho Falls that voted for these turbines like years and years before we
Mhm.
were even born. I think that really kind of lends the difference to what we're seeing today, that innovation back in the 1900 and then the 1980s when we chose to rebuild after the Teton Dam and what
Yeah.
They made some good decisions early
made some
on.
great decisions. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what are some of the benefits to hydropower?
So I can touch on this a little bit and then Christopher, go ahead and jump in if I miss something. But hydropower is really clean and efficient energy. It's one of the cleanest, most efficient, most reliable sources of energy you can have. And it's affordable. So you do have, larger infrastructure costs when you're setting it up. But once you've paid those off, I mean, it provides low, stable power sources to the consumer. And there's been a lot of studies done that show like once that has happened, it's really the lowest level cost per energy that you can get. So that's, a big one. We all appreciate that in our pocketbooks. So affordability is critical. Um, it's local and a secure power source. So in the Pacific Northwest, we have been really fortunate to be able to capitalize on all the water out here. And Idaho Falls is no different. So because we're generating where we live, we're not relying on foreign markets. We're not relying on any of those fluctuations in um, coal prices or anything else that might be out there. And we're really able to tap into Mother Nature, right? And granted, right, different with water flows. Um, you might not be able to generate as much, but we've always been able to generate some. And then there's always efficiencies to look at how can you tap lower water flows, right? And then it is very consistent. Christopher had talked about exactly like Idaho Falls, our winter's coming up, right? It's going to be gray. Like that's our favorite color in the wintertime is gray. And it seems to last forever, but there's lots of cloud cover, which, impedes solar electricity. It's, windy. There are some days, very few, I feel like, but some days where the wind doesn't blow. And so wind's not as reliable. Water is consistently reliable. It's there and you can immediately generate electricity. So the cost of getting it up online and generating is very low. It can almost be immediate. And I think that's really important when you look at that consistent, steady flow, right? Because we'll talk about, and it's a little more complex, but we know there's a base load. When we refer to base load, we know within the city of Idaho Falls, this is how much energy it really costs people are really using. That's the base load. Now during peak season, and Christopher can talk a little bit about our peaking plan a little bit, which is a cool thing. We talk about innovation and looking to the future. Well, there's the teaser for that. But we have peak loads. So we know like in the summer and the hottest day, people are going to flip on those air conditioning and we need to be able to meet something from that base load to that peak load and fill that gap. And so we're looking for energy sources that can do that. And so hydropower provides that consistent base load, which is really useful. So those are some of I think the big ones for me for the big benefits for hydropower.
And after when I first started working at Idaho Falls Power and was just really learning more about hydropower in and of itself and about our run of the river plants, I asked my boss at the time, I'm like, why do we not have one of these every 20 feet down the river? Because we're not damming anything, we're not holding anything back. What is the holdback? I just don't understand. It's clean. We're just allowing the river to run through our plants to make electricity. And we look towards the future and with population growth and this was, a few years ago, there was this big push for, going green by such and such a date and pushes for EV everything. And it's kind of like, okay, this is super great and all, but where are you getting all this electricity? So I understand that's a good goal to have, but let's just kind of just chill out and go about this slowly and mindfully. So, but I just think that hydropower, especially, where we're at in the Rocky Mountains, renewable resource, the rain in the mountains and the snow, and it comes down every single year. It's pretty consistent. Towards the fall, the river levels aren't as high, but there's always water, coming through. So makes sense.
What are some of the advancements in hydro technology that are being made?
This was a good question, and I actually did some research associated with it. So I'm not, I'm not an engineer by any chance, but um, one of the cool things that I'll bring up INL again is looking at locally is trying to do these hydro hybrids. So develop batteries that can kind of collect and sustain that renewable power and store it during high generation timeframes where we might not be using as much energy, and then would let us to tap into that during higher demand times, lower generation times. So that's one of the newer technologies. They're always looking at making turbines more efficient, like what materials they can use. And then right before I came here, I had an article pop up in my email, which was cool, but harnessing wave power.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
the Bonneville Power Administration just, and they did a power purchase agreement with one of the universities out there to see if they could start generating um, hydroelectricity through the power of the ocean and waves.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so it's newer, right? You're still looking at like it's
Yeah.
got to be efficient to actually make sense. But that's a new technology that I think people are looking at with regards to hydroelectricity.
Yeah, and I think that probably the biggest concern with hydro, I would think, would be just the environmental issues surrounding it, especially with fish. That's usually
Mhm.
the first thing that
Hmm.
comes to mind, you know. And I think just the more innovation and kind of, I know that fish ladders and things that exist in some of those other places that have more dams, to kind of address some of those concerns. But I think that that's just something to, you know, think about.
Salmon spawn, but the fish returns have been. I wish I need to find you guys a study. It
I've
was
heard
really
this ad.
impressive.
There's an ad that I keep hearing on Spotify about, and I was like, that's so weird. It's popped up on my thing. Maybe because I was researching things
Ooh,
for
I
hydro.
bet.
But it was talking about the increase of fish population, and I don't remember the numbers either. But I was like, I've heard that on my
Mhm.
It
Spotify
is, and it's
ads.
dramatic, the return associated. I think this is specific to like the Columbia River system.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cool. It's great news, right? I mean, I think it shows like everything does have impacts, but
Mhm.
can we mitigate those impacts as humans, and what's the best way to do it? Because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I don't know of anyone that says, I don't want to take a hot shower anymore. Like,
Yep.
I think we have these ideas, but everything we want, there's a consequence. We might want to use less fossil fuels, but like, we
Yep.
really want to go to the beach in Mexico, right? So, how do you get there? So, I just think we need to be aware of, um, consequences and the actions,
Yeah.
and then what we can do um, to improve those.
But at the end of the day, when it comes to with hydro and our dams and whatnot, I think I exist too much in the positive, and I don't know much around surrounding the negative. Like, what are the concerns? Like, truly, what are the concerns and the pushback against hydropower? I just don't understand. How is this a bad thing? So, I mean, we've tried to address with all the fish,
Mhm.
as you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, and with the fish ladders, but looking at it, with water storage and recreation, with lakes and reservoirs and things like that, and then just clean energy. It's like our turbines have been underwater now for over 40 years. Same turbines that have been there since the early 80s, cranking out this electricity, and they're pretty, you know, free from.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So I just
Right.
don't. I guess I don't understand what is the pushback so much about. And I haven't talked with a lot of those people that have mega concerns about
Yeah.
hydropower. So
And I
anyway,
think there's always going to be a
yeah,
consequence, but it is a very clean, renewable
yeah,
resource.
I
Definitely.
appreciate that nod to the other side too, because I know where I'm from, there's water is a big deal because it's California and drought.
hmm
And so storing water and then energy and fish habitat. And so I know it's like very hot topic. And I'm not super, I know that it's there and I have my opinions, but I'm like, I'm not very well informed about it
hmm
either, like both sides. So it's I appreciate that you guys brought that up. That,
Yeah.
it's good to think, okay, here are our actions, here's our intentions. Got to make sure we're aware of
Mhm.
consequences, good and bad. So,
Good and bad. Is that
yeah,
something we're willing to live with or figure out how we can improve?
exactly.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like I look back from my previous job, and mining can be fairly destructive, but we also all appreciate the products that are developed. So what consequences are we willing to live with, and what can we do to improve to minimize those?
Sorry, brain was like, where am I at? So we talked about advancements. I think was there anything else we missed that we didn't really talk about, like hydro, that you were like, oh, I wanted to get this? Because we have more questions, but they're kind of more general about
Yeah.
energy conservation and stuff. So I didn't want to miss anything because you guys you're doing great.
I think, and Christopher, if you want to talk, I would like to hit on this because I really do think when we talk about innovation and like the lowest prices here, and we look at like we're a nonprofit, the foresight that the people living here had, I think is really impressive. And I think we probably should talk. Do you want to hit on that? Just about how we didn't have to rebuild after like the Teton Dam occurred, right? So maybe I can jump in when I'm saying things wrong. Christopher be like, wrong. I just But when we had the flood, it wiped out most of the hydro plants for the city of Idaho Falls. And at that time frame in the late 1970s, the community members in Idaho Falls had the opportunity to be like, no, we can purchase hydropower from the Bonneville Power Administration for really cheap. We are not willing to invest, I can't remember how many millions.
Yeah.
32 millions, right? Really high millions, especially in the 80s to rebuild. And they thought, no, we want to be more, independent. We want to be more self-reliant. And they voted for a bond for a very high number back then to rebuild these dams. And then in 1980s, they built the Gem State plant and voted for another bond to build a bigger plant that produces quite a bit of electricity as well. And we had a bonfire several years ago because they paid off all the bonds associated with those rebuilds several years ago. And the city really has, the community has really been benefited from those actions of their parents, and their grandparents are saying, this is a big financial investment, but we think it's going to pay off. And it indeed has paid off, because now we're looking at where there's more demand for energy and there's not enough generation. I mean, we're able to meet, I shouldn't say not enough generation, but it's getting tapped. It's obviously becoming more expensive, right? Supply and demand, like simple economics there. And because we're able to generate, we are able to keep our costs lower. And so really that affordable, that reliable, that energy, we are the benefits of our generation before us saying, hey, we're willing to take that financial risk and that innovation and rebuild. Pretty impressive.
And then Sarah, like you mentioned that Idaho Falls Power, we are not for profit, and we always say that we're community powered, community owned, and that's true. So we're a municipality here, and we do not exist to make money at the end of the day. So basically, our whole purpose is just to make sure that the lights stay on for the citizens that live within the city limits of Idaho Falls, and of course, there's always that we have to purchase transformers or run new lines here and there. So there is a little bit of those costs and whatnot. But at the end of the day, that's it. So we're not looking to make oodles of money or line somebody's pockets.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool, especially now. I'm not going to mention names, but there's different power companies around that have had to raise rates dramatically, right? You're looking at like 23% increases, and we haven't had to do that. And because we are a nonprofit, and it's cool to live and work for an entity that you believe in their mission.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything.
Thank you.
So that was great.
Just want to get that.
Yeah.
That in there. I do think it's cool. Like, I think innovation takes risk, right? And I think all too often, for me personally, like, I'm just so focused in like here and now that you don't think, okay, what if 20 years from now? I think it's cool when we have visionary people that can.
Definitely. They made that investment. They saw, they're like, well, this is going to help us down the line, or not even us, but the next generation.
Exactly, right?
So that's really cool that they did that.